to say about their sessions. So at this time, I would like to introduce Grant Wichenko.
Thank you very much. How many of you are here are FMs? Who else do we have? Designers, architects, consultants, owners? Good. Okay, my talk is on the Facility Manager's Guide to Building Automation Systems. We're going to outline the principles of sound BAS design and procurement, list the steps to integrate a newer modified building automation system into the existing infrastructure. Remember, buildings are changing all the time. Explain how our network controls specification process allows for streamlined facilities management. And I'm going to talk about network controls in the smart grid. So we've been around since 1980. Basically, we do building design and building automation. I'm a member of the BACnet committee. I'm a member of what's called SGPC 13, the Guide Spec Committee. If you're interested in seeing the specification, it's now out for public review on the ASHRAE website. And I'm active in the Smart Grid Committee. So, why are BASs important to facility managers, and how do we sell them to management? First thing, this is a list. We can tell me what you think. Emergency preparedness. So real-time pricing events, for those of you perhaps in California or other states where you're getting real-time pricing is a reality for you now. Generator power switches between from commercial power to generator power, fire alarm events, and bad power. Being able to respond to customer complaints. Now, that number of $50 a square foot a year, I did a study of schools in my part of the world, and I looked at costs for 800 schools. It costs $50 a square foot to run a school, largely teachers' salaries. Streamline building automation system, streamline facility FM operations, because it's going to help them spend less time diagnosing problems. The maintenance costs for the schools were around $5 a square foot. Save energy and water, it was $1 a square foot. So I'm trying not to be a heretic here, but energy costs are a very small part of running a building. Okay? Now, how do we sell it to management? Well, it saves energy and water, right? It allows us to respond to customer complaints. It allows us to deal with emergency preparedness, and it allows us to streamline facility management operations. Generally, we don't tell our bosses that it makes our FM operation run better because, oh, well, that means you can lay off some people. Well, that's the last thing we want to have happen. And what I'm going to talk about is how we can procure BASs to meet all four benefits. Okay, here are some design principles to follow. FMs must be involved in the entire design and construction process. Too often we have seen FMs being involved only after the building is turned over by construction. How many of you experienced that hell? Okay. There should be only 2 or 3 FM approved BAS vendors. Having more than this is a maintenance nightmare. And we have a process that helps you do that. We want to limit the selection of equipment such as VFDs, lights, chillers. Now that there are grants from the states to get VFDs, I was on one job. They had 10 VFD manufacturers. How are you supposed to maintain? I didn't think there were 10 manufacturers of VFDs, but they had 10 different models of VFDs. Ultimately, FMs must have control over the BAS spec, or they won't get a spec that meets FM priorities. More heresy, I guess. Let's talk about the design process. Well, we want to participate in the design charrette. You want to get your opinions out there as soon as possible if this happens to be a lead project. But the charrette process is used on non-lead jobs as well. You want to evaluate clever ideas from consultants on a life cycle cost basis. Consultants like me like to come up with crazy ideas that may or may not be maintainable. Sustainability means it's maintainability and cleanability. If you can't maintain it or clean it, it's not sustainable. Determine the extent of BAS coverage, okay? My philosophy in design, as a designer, is simply designed, highly instrumented buildings. Not complicated designs that your staff can't understand. Simply designed buildings, highly instrumented. Review MEP equipment selections for networkability. Everything now can get a network connection. I'll be talking about this throughout my presentation. You want equipment that can be networked together. Have a BAS spec to cover networking. Use the commissioning process to train facility operations staff and verify the asset tag system for work orders. The biggest part of doing the asset tagging system is inputting the inventory. The time to do it is at the commissioning process. Look for best value options for bidding controls. I'll be talking about that briefly, but essentially we don't want to buy controls like we buy those big chocolate muffins at Costco, right? Johnson's on sale this week, we'll buy Johnson, and next week we'll buy Automated Logic. That's not how we should be buying controls. Proper commissioning is essential to sustainability. We want to use BAS software to reduce functional performance test volumes. It is much better to review the software than to spend time with a checklist saying, did the dampers open, okay? What matters is, in the checklist, is the software written to cover the safeties? And that never gets covered. Check out the equipment prior to turnover. Check the programming correctly. It's easy to do the hardware, you know. Did the lights come on? Is the temperature at 72? What's hard is the software. And integrate O&M and PM data into the front end. Please, no more paper manuals. Stop it. Stop cutting down trees. The future is COBE and Building Smart Alliance. And I'll talk about that briefly in the presentation. Okay, FMs must negotiate a procurement process that satisfies both purchasing and the FM. Purchasing departments want competitive bidding, no sole sourcing is allowed. FMs would like to have one vendor. This is not possible, okay? The compromise is 2 or 3 vendors over a 3 to 5 year period. And we have a process whereby we evaluate the product, the teams putting in the product, and we award jobs on a best value RFP system the same way you hire consultants, okay? And it's a hard idea to grasp that I'm applying RFP principles to construction contracts, because if contractor A is the dollar cheaper than contractor B, we're assuming that those 2 people are equal, okay? That isn't the case. FMs must control the BAS spec, so more heresy. They must have extensive input over control so that they can deal with equipment to be controlled, points naming conventions, right? Every building has an AHU1, okay? And if you've got a campus, you got 100 AHU1s on campus, okay? How do you name them so that they're unique? We want to make sure that they cover routines like optimal start-stop, partial occupancy, daylighting, and other sequences. I'm going to talk about equipment level metering, front-end graphics design, and finally, training and commissioning. We recommend that FMs have a Division 25 spec that the consultants use to cover these items. The consultants can then do the design, picking the points, and, you know, is the chiller 100 tons or 600 tons or whatever it is? What does it matter to the FM? What matters is the chiller installed with the appropriate objects to allow it to be maintained, and are the points named correctly following the facility domain naming convention. FMs must set the BAS graphics standard. Graphics like of devices can and must look the same. Sole sourcing graphics to one vendor is the normal solution, but without some sort of unit pricing, you're setting yourself up for failure, because what it means is that you have 3 vendors. Vendor A does the graphics. Okay, that vendor has a competitive advantage over vendors B and C. And frankly, there's no need to do that because most of the graphics from the vendors have a same look and feel, and they can be named the same. So generally, we do multi-vendor installations, well, with multiple graphical front ends. And you're going to have multiple front ends for fire alarm, because you're going to have lighting systems, fire alarm systems, metering systems, okay? And finally, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, you want to migrate your graphics eventually to the 3D HTML5 standard for graphics. FMs must ensure that the BAS design permits equipment level metering. Equipment level metering is essential for FMs to maintain performance over the life of the system, not just to save energy. Most pieces of equipment, and if you go on the show floor, you can ask the question of the VFD suppliers, for instance, all do KW and KWH. Okay? You don't need to put a meter in for that anymore because that data is now available to you via BACnet. That applies to chillers, computer and air conditioners, trip units. They can all do metering via BACnet and, if necessary, Modbus. Okay. Now, this metering is not revenue grade metering, not to NCC 1219 like your utility meter is revenue grade, okay? But it tells you how you're doing. And for those of you who have gone to Weight Watchers, the first thing you do, I went to Weight Watchers, they wanted me to be an instructor because men don't like going to Weight Watchers, is to do the weigh-in. And you always wear the same set of clothes when you go to your weigh-in, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? Okay. Okay, it gives you a measure of performance, okay? This data can be aggregated into an energy dashboard or kiosk to provide real-time reporting for the enterprise green strategy. This is when we have a chance to look good. And we want to present the meter data in kilowatt, not in kilowatt hours. Like, who cares if the chiller consumed 10 quadrillion kilowatt hours? It cost, with the graphics I'm doing now, the guys see it cost $1,500 to run the chiller plant last week. What? $1,500? Cost $25 to let this motor run last night. Really? Okay. I better go and look at that. So use dollars, you take the runoff rate and use 8 cents, 6 cents a kilowatt hour and use that as an approximation. Okay, IT support is critical to allow BACnet IP devices to run on the enterprise LAN. So here we have a series of devices. We've got fire alarm over here. Fire eyes, that's boiler controllers. We've got a Schneider meter over there. Okay, all these are networked together to a server, and then there's a client you use to talk to the devices. IT is integral to a successful BAS project. Many devices are BACnet IP based. FMs have few IT expertise. I've only run into a handful, mostly Big Ten colleges, that have their own IT department, okay? So what this means, and this is more heresy, IT is your new BFF, your new best friend forever, okay? Okay, but get used to it. They control the highway. They make your job easier, okay? IT must be involved with the BS integration not a week before commissioning begins. Don't go to them and say, hi, we need 50 IP drops for all of our equipment, and were you doing anything this weekend? Okay, not gonna happen, okay? IT security also includes no open connections in public areas, okay? Physical security to rooms where BAS equipment is installed, mandatory staff contractor security clearances or background checks. Okay, so it's not just securing the network, it's dealing with the people and the physical realm that this equipment is installed in. I'm not going to talk about BACnet network security today. BACnet network security is the standard in the BACnet standard that allows for devices themselves to be secured. We're assuming that devices, for the most part, are insecure and are being secured by IT means, firewalls, VLANs, and so on. IT must control the enterprise LAN infrastructure used by building automation systems. Having separate computers for front ends for each job is no longer required. This is why you have control over the spec, because consultants don't know this and they keep specking another PC. Okay? Another machine means patch management headaches for IT. Okay? Microsoft, it's called Patch Tuesday. Second Tuesday, I think it's the second Tuesday of the month, they release all their fixes at midnight. Okay, so that means machines are patched on a regular basis. The more machines require patching, more headaches IT has. Day-to-day access should only be to a server via web interface using IE or whatever you want to use. Server access should be restricted to configuration and software upgrades. If your BAS vendor, and I don't know of anybody at this point, requires administrative rights to use the software, get another BAS vendor. Server should be maintained by IT, not the FM. BAS must follow IT installation standards, or it's done by Division 27. Our view is that it's part of the structured cabling, that all cabling is done by one contractor, just like now in most construction contracts, fire stopping is done by one contractor. Okay, BAS vendors should only install and maintain MSTP and Modbus network cabling because it's non-IP. Servers must be, and switches must be maintained by IT. No foreign devices, no hubs sitting in tubs. Okay, stop doing that, okay, because that's a security hole. You're going to have to deal with wireless controls. Wireless lighting is popular. IP addresses are assigned by IT, no private networks. There should be only, what we do is we only have one network connection to all the IP devices that we're serving, so that it means that until the network gets its CNA, accreditation and certification, it basically is one connection into the enterprise LAN, so that you have your separate switched network, okay, for BAS devices. And in the last big building we did, okay, we had 60 IP drops. So it was a significant number of drops we had to put in. Okay, BASs are now commissioned using the IP infrastructure. Therefore, this means that there has to be a temporary network in place, because IT does not do terminations until the furniture is in place. Okay? So what that means is that the MEP contractor is normally out the door long before the furniture is put in place. So they may allow wireless for that, because nothing's lit up, it's not connected to the enterprise LAN. So wireless APs are not a bad solution in that case for commissioning the building. Okay, let's talk about remote access. FMs want remote access to reduce travel times. Makes sense to me, we do it all the time. IT quite rightly views this as a major security hole. Software like Citrix makes it easier to maintain remote access in a secure manner. Who's familiar with Citrix XenApp? Anybody use Citrix? Does it work okay for you? A little slow, but I mean, what Citrix does is it virtualizes the connection. So you think you're talking to a real machine, you're just talking to ether, okay? And that limits your ability to go in and hack to other systems, okay? IT should be creating a VLAN of BASs to segment traffic, okay? And one of the things you must segment now is lighting controls, because most lighting controls are IP-based, and they rely on multicasting, okay? And multicasting is often blocked on networks, so you have to create your own subnet for lighting controls to allow for multicasting. Because they talk like this and talk like that because lights have to go on and off really quickly, and multicasting is one of the few ways it works. Okay. Some people, less so now, ask for physical separation of the BAS local area network to the rest of the enterprise LAN. It's a poor choice, okay? Because the BACnet devices are designed to to reside on the enterprise land, and we want it so that you can share data, right? Because there's usually utility department and energy management department, and those people are going to want to get access to the meter data that I've talked about, okay? They don't care about whether the chiller is running or not. All they care is what it's costing. The target breach is a lesson for us all. Fazio Mechanical provided electronic billing, contract submission, and project management, not HVAC services, okay? People thought it was an HVAC contractor that did this. They were not doing HVAC work for Target, as it turns out. Okay, had its credentials stolen. And this particular fraud analyst said, the payment card industry standards do not require organizations to maintain separate networks for payment and non-payment operations. Unbelievable, but that's the standard, okay? It does require merchants to incorporate two-factor authentication for remote network access, okay? The target system used by Fazio did not have two-factor authentication. Do people know what that means, two-factor authentication? Pull out your credit card. If you have a credit card with a chip on it, and you pay for something, you put in a PIN, okay? Two-factor authentication means, what do I have, what do I know? Okay, there could be other factors of authentication, like a credit card with your picture ID on it. When you go into a hotel now, and it's even in Vegas, you go buy a t-shirt, they'll want picture ID before they'll let you use your credit card in this town. The target breach demonstrates that FMs must embrace IT concerns about potential security breaches. You do not want to be blamed for this. You want your stuff secured to the same standard as everybody else has. ITT is your BFF. I was going to print up buttons for that, but okay. FMs must have control. What are we doing for time? Over the BAS integration process, okay? Often, there's all sorts of projects going on campus, on a military base, in a school district, ESPC contracts, a big lighting retrofit, somebody's got a grant to go spend money, okay? And no matter what the construction mechanism is, FMs must have control over it so that the equipment can be integrated into the existing BAS infrastructure. And our process that I'm going to outline is based on using BACnet as the integration medium. There are two BAS integration options. One is a third-party integrator. The other one is our network controls process. A third-party integrator will integrate in all the components. Our spec process requires all devices to be BACnet devices. So if you go back to that slide of all those network devices, all of those devices there spoke BACnet. Now, in the case of the fire alarm, they spoke a proprietary protocol in the background, but the vendor provided a gateway to speak BACnet. So to the world, just like I'm communicating in English, all of you may speak different languages at home, but to the world, we're speaking one language. Okay? Adding a third-party integrator, particularly if that integrator is a vendor, okay, may not be necessary if vendor coordination is done. And there's a competitive advantage if one of the BAS vendors is the integrator. And our process removes that. The network controls process is based on the principle that all devices come with a BACnet interface. Okay, so the Kohler generator, okay, in the electrical world, speak Modbus. But getting Modbus to BACnet gateways bundled with the generator, okay, is not a big deal. And vendors will soon be producing native BACnet product like that. You can buy native BACnet energy meters. Most HVAC equipment have BACnet on board. The lighting systems have BACnet. Elevators, we do lab controls, we do all sorts of things. So now all those devices speak BACnet, okay? It's up to the vendor to provide the gateway, not a third-party integrator. For those of you who have done it with a third-party integrator, the contractor is standing, close out the job. Meanwhile, they're sitting there playing, trying to get the gateway to work, okay? Our process assumes front ends that work because we say to Freddie, the fire alarm guy, okay, and Chuck, the chiller guy, okay, that you provide your device with BACnet on board. So that the contractor's responsibility, the BAS contractor's responsibility is, where do I plug in? And is it an IP device or is it an MSTP device that I have to network to? Okay, let's look at a boiler plant. Okay, so the boilers, some boilers come with BACnet interfaces built in, so these are peer-to-peer device. Generally, that's not how it's done for most boiler suppliers at this point. There's one BACnet interface here that talks to the plant. And so when you send a set point, I want 100 Fahrenheit water if it's a condensing boiler, okay? The controller says, okay, you run, you're at fault, oh, we need more heat, you better start. So that the BAS vendor does not have control over the individual devices, only the plant. Why do we do this? Because the boiler supplier knows better how to control his or her boiler individually than a BAS vendor. No disrespect, but that applies to chillers, that applies to a lot of other systems that we run. The VFDs are MSTP devices. So we have and then there are sensors that are added in the field, header sensors that have to be networked together. But essentially, we have what we refer to as a plant. And we talk about lighting plants, meter plants, generator plants. So it's a built-up collection of devices designed to perform a particular function. Okay, why would we talk to a boiler? Well, we get all sorts of data out of the boiler to find out its health. Flue gas temperature, combustion efficiency, fault history. We're just finishing up a job now where we're getting individual gas monitoring because we know what the firing rate is, and we can do a calculated value for gas consumption. So now we can calculate the value of gas without putting in a $5,000 meter. Now, it's not a perfect calculation, but it gives us a pretty good idea, and then we can take the boilers, the domestic water, and other gas uses, add that up, and compare it to what the meter says. Okay, how does this work? A condensing boiler, for those of you who use specs, is normally in 235200. This is now master format. How many of you are familiar with master format specifications? Okay, not many, okay. Well, master format has 48 divisions, and it used to be the old division 15, 16 for electrical and mechanical. Now electrical is 26, 27, 28, and mechanical is 21 through 25 without 24. So a boiler is specified in 2352. The BACnet interface for the boiler is in division 25 under 2520, 2352. So if the equipment is in 23NN, the BACnet interface is in 2520NN. Okay, we could put all of this information together in one section, but it requires too much coordination to be found. So from the supplier's perspective, there's only one reference to where all of the BACnet information is contained. And that applies everything from window shades all the way up to fire alarm equipment. Okay, coordination work between the trades is critical. The IP drop is by division 27. And finally, there's the division 01 section to help the contractor who manages the project to deal with all of these BACnet devices. Okay, the construction agreement is between the owner and the GC. There is no contractual relationship, okay, between the BAS contractor and the owner. So that means everything must go through the contractor. And our message to the GCs when they see this is, do not think about BACnet. Your job is to kick the butts of the subs to get the work done, get the submittals done properly, get them installed, tested, and commissioning properly so you can get paid. That's your job. So putting BACnet requirements into a submittal is no different than saying what the voltage is for a chiller. So here we have in the highlighted sections, in related sections, it tells the supplier of the boiler where to go for the BACnet information. In the boiler spec, it says about BACnet compliance and that there's a BACnet interface device to be supplied by the equipment supplier. And then in the 2520, 2352 section, that's where the object list, the points list is specified. So there's one step. There isn't a whole bunch of sections. So the boiler guy goes to his section, the chiller guy goes, the chiller girl goes to her section, and so on. And those points lists cover fault codes and other things. Let's take the chiller plant example. We have chiller 1 and 2. These are air-cooled chillers. We have pumps. So we now have a plant, a cooling plant, okay, that includes both network devices and built-up devices, like the bypass valve, the sensors, all of these things here, okay, have to be brought back to the chiller plant controller, okay? And from the point of view of the BAS contractor, there's only one point of entry into the chiller plant controller. So the BAS contractor says, make 42 degrees water, okay? That's where the responsibility stops. Now the chiller plant controller says, what chillers do I run to be most efficient? How fast do I run the pumps? Okay, are there faults and so on that I have to look at? Okay, so there isn't this sort of stuff going on because the BAS contractor says, am I talking to the devices so I can create my graphics? That's the issue. All right, let's look at a chiller plant graphic. Okay, the cooling tower, we didn't put speed drives on this particular cooling tower, or the consultant didn't put speed drives on the cooling tower. So it's stick built. It had start, stop, and a status for the motor. The chillers are BACnet. The VFDs are BACnet. And then there's also a refrigerant monitor and water treatment controller, okay, that are BACnet devices. Amazing that you can buy water treatment controllers that are BACnet devices, okay, and they have built-in water meters. So now you can make up water without adding another water meter. Okay, BACnet gives you the ability now. BACnet devices have onboard metering now, okay, so that you're not installing additional meters. Okay, here's a VFD. It's consumed. It has its own built-in kilowatt hour counter. That's the graphic. That's the front end, the screenshot. And there's a picture of the drive showing that's what it is. So we commissioned that to make sure, are we reading it correctly? Here's some chiller plant data. So what we have here is we have all of the power, we have the tonnage, so we now calculate our kW per ton in real time. Now, this isn't 0.6 for those of you who know what chiller plant should be, okay? Because it includes all of the condenser power as well. So now this is a true value in kilowatt hours per, well, true in that these are not revenue grade meters, but it gives you an idea how well is that chiller plant performing, okay, say in the shoulder seasons. Okay, BACnet is the protocol of choice for the facility domain interface for the smart grid. Anybody here from California? Okay, you know all about this, right? No? The real-time pricing, getting real-time pricing signals from PG&E, okay? And how you have to respond to that, okay? Well, I'm going to talk about that right now, okay? There are new demands on the FM, such as the systems need to work with new smart grid technologies. BAS needs to respond to potential outages and short-term price increases for electricity, natural gas, and eventually water. I didn't know this, but with the polar vortex last year, there were penalties that one of our clients paid because they exceeded their gas allocation. And it was like $5,000 in one day. And I was shocked. It was the gas price went from 50 cents a therm to $6 a therm, okay, because they declared a critical day, okay. We then went back and looked at the boiler plant. How could we run the boiler plant? The next critical day, we saved the $5,000. Finally, as an engineer, I got to look like a bit of a hero. I was very happy about that. Okay, emergency preparedness is a priority for FMs, okay? That when you've got the need, you lose power, you've got a fire alarm event, you've got an intrusion event, okay, the building automation system can be your friend to respond to that. One of the, what we're looking to do eventually is that this data that we're looking at will actually be on an iPad or a laptop for the fire department, so that they can say, okay, from the security system, how many souls are on the 6th floor? Did the elevators home to by mistake into the fire floor, or did they home to the bottom floor? So they know what's going on in the building now. Is the fire in the mechanical, is the problem in the mechanical room? Is it on the floor? What happened? So that they're not walking in blind anymore. The BAS also needs to provide data for the facility domain to the utility using what's called the Open Automated Demand Response standard. So the utility computer says electrical rates are going up to 20 cents a kilowatt hour tomorrow afternoon because we're going to have a brownout event. Okay, what does the building automation system do? Perhaps we dim the lights slightly, we increase temperature slightly, or decrease temperatures, or do whatever it takes to allow basically what are short-term events to pass. These are usually not long-term chaos. It's usually an event that passes a few times a year. Okay, so let's look at a building. So all of these devices here, okay, can be backnet devices. Okay, and then when we get an event coming in, well, we kick in the PV array. We dim the lights slightly. We might slow the fans down. We might raise the temperature in the space slightly. Okay, so we get past the event with minimum disruption to our customers. The standard, ASHRAE 201P, defined 4 types of devices: the meter, the thermostat, which is an energy manager, a generator, like a photovoltaic panel or a generator, and a load, like a lighting system. And so now, from a specification standpoint, you can have a multi-vendor environment whereby all of this equipment is now supplied by different vendors and is all integrated together on the facility domain side using backnet. Okay, summary. Backnet-based building automation systems that are specified and installed using the network controls process can provide data for emergency preparedness, such as real-time pricing events and so on. The BAS data allows FMs to prepare for emergencies. Remember those 4 things at the beginning? Respond to customer complaints, streamline facility operations, and save energy. One of my clients said to me, I didn't think the process was going to work. I was really nervous about all these devices. They're all talking to each other, and okay. Now I do virtual rounds. I don't have to do rounds every day. I can do virtual rounds. When we do our weekly generator test, we take a screenshot of the data so that we file it to show that we A, exercised the generator, and B, the test was successful. You couldn't do that if you weren't capturing data from the generator. Okay, labor and travel time is saved with remote access. ITT is your best friend forever. Let's close with the future. FMs need to refine the BAS graphics and reports so staff get critical information such as energy consumption, price changes, alarms, counts of burned out lights that can be absorbed in a 15-minute period at a shift change. I've been thinking about this because I go to the shift change and I see how the handoff between the engineers, one shift hands off to the other shift. Okay, what could we do to provide graphics to simplify that process? Okay, maybe counts of alarms as opposed to individual alarms. Okay, energy data and other things. I haven't quite figured all that out, but it can only be a 15-minute process. And finally, the facility managers can use the BAS to display graphics on other equipment, such as architectural finishes, window treatments, paint colors. So we don't have this in a manual. We can actually go to a graphic, drill onto the 5th floor. Okay, what's the Armstrong tile number that's in the ceiling tile? Okay, that's not hard to do. If you get the data in a submittal form that's machine readable, even if it's a spreadsheet, the BAS vendor can capture that data and stick it as a graphic on the building automation system. So, you know, where did this carpet come from? You know, who was the supplier? Well, nobody knows where the O&M manual is, but we can integrate all of that information into the building automation system. And next time I'll talk on COBE and Building Smart. Thank you very much for your time. I have a few minutes for questions or comments.